Hey everyone, welcome. A few technical difficulties there. I am new to streaming, so bear with me. We're going to dive into Xplore today, and we're going to look at how it can help you in your day-to-day ServiceNow development lifecycle and other aspects of what you're doing. Just as a quick aside here, if you go to xploretoolkit.com, there's just a few things here to kind of explain it, which I'll just very quickly kind of run over for people who haven't seen this before, which is basically Xplore is an exploratory programming tool. That's where the name comes from. It's exploratory programming, and that means that you're writing code to basically understand how it works and looking at the outputs and kind of deducing from that what you need to do. Way back in the day when ServiceNow was first, before we had the great documentation that we do now, and even then, we do need some help sometimes. This was the best way to kind of see what methods we could call and figure out what could be done. Okay. So onto Xplore itself. When you install Xplore, you get it comes in as an update set. You just apply it to your instance, and you can basically get this button on the top right-hand corner. And if you click that, that is going to open a new instance of Xplore. You can have as many as you want of these open, and have them simultaneously running and stuff. So there's no issues there. It will open new windows if you need them. You can actually do that through this button here as well. Just very quickly, just to touch on sort of the menu within ServiceNow, there is this kind of properties list here, which you may or may not have seen if you're those familiar with it. And there's just a few settings in here which you might be interested if you want to sort of if you were going to apply this to production or whatever, don't run anything. So just some safety things there, and then we'll come back to these a little bit later. Right, so looking at Xplore itself, we can see that the window is basically a single page application, and on the left hand side we've got our code editor. And so in here, we can just type anything we like, and it's going to run the code. We can use a shortcut, which is Control-Enter or Command-Enter, or you can hit the Run button itself. And of course, we're going to capture that and display that out the top. So this in itself is incredibly useful. If you're debugging code and you want to paste some code in here, you can sort of pull stuff out without having to do syslog entries. It's worth pointing out as well, the GS methods that are being used here are not the ServiceNow ones. They're actually sort of overwritten by Xplore in order to capture the output. So that applies for gs.warn as well, and gs.error. And if we actually went and looked at the logs, those wouldn't be appearing. So what are you going to use Xplore for? Xplore is a code editor, it's a code executor. And what that means is that we're going to run some code, we're going to get an object back, and from that object, we're going to basically look at it and determine what it is, determine what contents it has, and then display those on the screen here. And actually, this came up in a Slack chat earlier on the ServiceNow dev channel, and you can do gs.getUser, for example, and that's going to return you everything within gs.getUser. So these are all of the properties of gs.getUser. These are all the types of those properties. As you can see, some of these are restricted. That means because this is a Java class, which you can tell from the fact this is a Java object at the top here, and it's a com.glide, that ServiceNow are not allowing us to view this. There's quite a few places within ServiceNow where this is protected, and that is really why ServiceNow made the big push to move over to scoped applications. It's much safer to have an API that you can't, or that they are going to maintain more properly, and you're not going to accidentally cause issues by accessing stuff that we shouldn't be. So yeah, we've got a list of functions and all sorts of stuff down here. Now, if you're only seeing this for the first time, of course, it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize all of this stuff was there. And that is the entire point of exploratory programming. So when I first wrote this, I tried gs.getUser and I was absolutely shocked. I was like, wow, because there's only probably 3 or 4 functions at the time that were documented that we could use. So this was just an absolute goldmine. So, hey Phil. What we're going to do is just have a quick run through some real life sort of scenarios. And if you have any that you want to sort of check out, this is a live stream, so feel free to drop into the chat there and we'll have a look at what we can do there. So as we've just seen, we can do some printing, we can look at some objects, that's all well and good, but how does this really help us? Well, one of the first things that we can do is if we go to a record in here, and this applies to any record in ServiceNow or any list, in fact, we can actually right click on the record and we can do open record and explore. And you can actually do this from the record itself. This is going to load slowly now, isn't it? But you can do it from the record itself, or you can do it from the list, and you can actually open the list itself as well. So if you're working with a record, you don't understand the values that are in there, or you want to see the values that are in there on the back end because perhaps they're not on the form, then what we can do is open and explore. So that's going to open a new window. It's going to write the code for you with the table and that. And all we have to do then is hit run. And immediately we're going to get everything back that is within that object. And this is, so all of these are glide elements. And what's nice about this is, you can kind of really get to grips and understand how ServiceNow have built, ServiceNow. We've got a glide record, and the glide record has fields within it or properties, which are glide elements, and those represent, the tables and the columns within those tables. Then we've got all different types of glide elements and things. So, and each of these actually has their own specific ways of working as well. A glide numeric is going to operate differently to a glide element reference. And we can see here as well, all the values that have come in here. And this is a nice one. It's actually been released with 4.8, which is, we've got dynamic linking in here. So basically Xplore is going to look at the output, determine if there's anything in here that looks like it might be a record, and give you a link to it. So here we know this is a reference, it's to open by, and it's for system administrator. So if I click that link, that's going to open me up to that record, and I can go and have a look at it. Now, obviously, it's actually done a little bit more there as well, because this is actually the value, the sys ID is the value, but it's actually telling us, this is the sys user table, this is the display value as well. So you're getting extra contextual information there without even having to open the link. So that's good. As I say, you can do the same thing from the list as well. And this is really, really useful in times when, especially in development, if you're building a table, for example, and you've filled it with a bunch of records that you just don't want to get rid of, or you just want to get rid of really quickly, you can just come into here, hit run. I'm not going to do this because we're going to do let's do a set limit on there. So we just get a default function here. We can run it, and we've got 100 records there printed out. Now, one thing that I do fairly often if I'm developing, just to avoid the delay with deleting records, is just to gr.delete record in here, and that's going to then delete those records for me. I'm not going to get into the argument of using gr, as we did the other day on a different one, but yes, that's how that works. And of course, what this means is that you can loop through records, you can update values, you can ensure you're updating those values. So if I wanted to update all of these incidents with a value, I don't need to do the commit here. I can do, I can sort of log the display value perhaps to ensure that I'm updating the correct values, but then I can actually do, gr.worknote equals hello, and I can apply that to all the records on that. So worknote is not a good one, but maybe you're updating the priority of all of these. And you can do that in the list, ensure how you're doing it. Obviously, that's a simplistic example because you'd more likely do that in the UI. But when you're getting into complex development activities, this can really help, especially if you need to do other things elsewhere as well. All right. So that kind of covers that broad aspect from within ServiceNow. You've got that you can open it from a list, you can open it from a record, and you can do that. Now, one thing you might have noticed when we ran this earlier is that we've got these are sort of appearing and going up in number as we're doing things within Xplore. This is a 4.8 update. There is plans to improve this in future. It's just, let's get this out for now. And essentially what we're doing here is capturing which or the scripts that are actually running. So you can see here we've run, these are the scripts we run. And if I click this, it's going to replace, and I can go back and see the script that I executed in the past. And even the one that we did right at the start, so it's never been in this window, I can go back and get that. And what's great about this as well is it's actually going to capture the target and the scope and all of the other aspects of Xplore within that kind of session. But if I was to run that again, if I run that now, it's going to update it so that it's always, so that we know that was the last one we run. So a really worthwhile point on this is these are limited to 50 records being stored. You know, this at the moment, the intention is not here to have permanent saved scripts that you want to execute, but I think 50 is going to give you a good run on those. That will be coming in future. At the moment, we're just sort of saying, what's the last 50 that you've run? And you know, you can go back and look at them if you want to. Now, going back into here, one of those properties within the Xplore properties page was the number of Xplore sessions to automatically store. So that's 50. So if you want to store more, you can. I've just chosen 50 just as a an arbitrary limit for now. Just to let you know as well, these are actually stored in your user preferences. So there's no actual extra tables in Xplore. We're not taking up any table licensing or anything like that. We're using what ServiceNow have made available as the core, and putting these into your preferences is just a great way to sort of minimize the footprint of Xplore in your instance. As I say, we'll be updating this in future so you can rename these. And actually, if you go and check out Rob Fedoruk's channel, he's actually put a link and just shown you, or he gives you an example of how to change that now if you're interested before the next release comes out. Just on to, I guess, a bit more of the UI of Xplore. So we've got up here, we've been running stuff on the server just now. We actually have a few other options here. So we can choose the client, which will actually be this window, so the browser, and we can also choose the opener as well, which will be the actual window that opened this this Xplore instance. So words are failing me. So I've just seen your question, Phil. Where is it storing the scripts? Yeah, in user preferences. And you can actually go and see them. In fact, I'll give you a quick highlight as well from another. This is a completely separate topic, but there's another free share, which is called UI16 Developer Patch. And what that does is makes these nice wide, so we can actually see what's in them. And it gives us nice menus, so we can go and do nice things very easily, very quickly. One of the things on that as well is that I can very quickly jump to the preferences, and then we can do Xplore, and then you can see in there is the Xplore points in there. So let's just have a quick run through what we've got in here. So on the top, as I say, we've got the continue with the run through. We then have scopes. Now this is really, really powerful because if you're running in a background script limits the scope that you can choose to run a script in to ones that you've created. Xplore bypasses that and just says, I'm going to let you run in anything. So if I choose this one here, this is obviously a UI builder component. And if I do this, that's going to get me the global scope for that SN help panel scope. So if you want to run a piece of code within an app that you're building, you can do that very, very easily. Obviously, Xplore doesn't show up in this app, even though it is an application. It's not a sys application, so it's not got a scope to be able to run into. It's in the global scope. Okay, and we'll just run down this left-hand side here. So we've got this is basically for collapsing this if you want to have a full screen view. We've also got a scripts here, so we can actually loop through or have a look at the scripting clues within the instance. We'll come back to this in a minute, I think, and we'll look at sort of how we can use that with sort of a bit more deep dive on the technical side. We've then got settings. This is new with 4.8. Just gave it a bit of a better layout. And we've got themes now. Obviously, this is still in beta, so some of these themes don't necessarily look great because they're applied to the editor, and I've just sort of made them apply to other areas. But for those of you wanting dark mode, you can achieve that now, and you just set that and click OK, and we can carry on. If you have any, obviously this is an open source project, so it's worth mentioning if you want to provide an update for it, you can go and view this on GitHub. And actually that's what this link here is. So you can just punch out to GitHub and have a look there, play with it if you want to, give me some updates, very, very welcome. Back to the settings very quickly. I'm not going to run through all of these. You can sort of read of those on your own. Most of these are more to do with how things are displayed, and probably to do with legacy issues that were had with rendering or processing values that we weren't allowed to read. I've since improved the Xplore code a lot, so it does work a bit better there. The main sort of points here are fixed logs. So I mentioned earlier how Xplore is replacing print, log, debug, all of those ones. You can actually turn that off so that it will write your logs to the system log. I don't ever really use that, but that's there. Another 4.8 new feature is hoisting. So this has been asked for a long time. It's been, I've needed it for a long time as well, but this is really, really powerful in the fact that you can now paste in scripts that require hoisting. And just for those of you that don't know what hoisting is, it basically means that if I define a function after it's called, I'm going to switch this theme back off just for clarity. And I call it up the top here. If I run it in native Xplore without hoisting, it's not going to work because it hasn't been defined yet. If I then turn hoisting on and run it again, it's going to work. Obviously, I'm not returning anything at the moment. And in actual fact, that's a really good point. So it is running, but it's showing undefined. And the reason it's showing undefined is because for hoisting to work, we have to execute Xplore within a function. So when you run anything in a function, it's going to run through, and it's going to, if I declare the function down here, that's going to be hoisted to the top of that function. What that means is that we need to use return. So in order to give Xplore something to do, we need to use return before the actual object that we're using. Now this is actually quite powerful because what it means is that I could write a script that was quite long and hit return anywhere, and it will just punch out to where I want it to be. So if we go back to this, for example, let's just do that. So that's going to return the log. But if I wanted to check what GR was doing first, I can do return GR, and it's going to give me the GR. Now, if you're not hoisting, so let's turn hoisting. Sorry, we're not hoisting at the moment. Okay. If you're not hoisting, then actually you can also do throw. And that is kind of an easy way, especially if this is within a method or in a class, for example, then you can throw that out. Okay, let's get on to some more of the fun stuff here. So we'll come back to user data later. Regular expressions. Where do I go with this one? This is one of those things where if you've been around the platform for any amount of time, especially before ECMA 5 got released ECMAScript 5 got updated into the platform, the regular expression matcher was very, very difficult to kind of understand and get it to work. And if you used any external testers to build your expression, it wouldn't work. Or you could easily have issues with how things are working. So let's do the old hello world in here again. And what we can do now is Xplore is going to run this natively on the platform. So we can now search for world. It's going to go away and give you the results. Hey, we found world. And if we look for this within a string, it's going to update it automatically. And then we can, just build regular expressions this way. And we can actually print out matches for groups as well. It's really, really powerful and quick and easy way to test any expressions that you might have within your emails or any other things where you're doing string matching. It's a lot more powerful than doing substring on everything. So yeah. And just to be a little bit helpful, there's obviously a bunch of guidance down the bottom there if you are not particularly familiar with regular expressions. Another great one, which it's one of those things that you don't use very often, but when you want to use it, it is really, really useful. And that is the table hierarchy generator. So within here, what the purpose is, as I'm sure any of you, again, being in the platform for any length of time, ServiceNow is absolutely chock-a-block full of tables. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And, sometimes it's nice to be able to find a table based on just a keyword search. So this is the whole purpose of what we've got here. So if you're adding a new CMDB item, for example, or you can't remember the exact name of a table, but you just want to go and find it, you can come into here and we can do a search. And I've deliberately missed the T off the end there, and it's returned me all of the things that contain incident. And I can see here as well that the incident and incident task belong to the task table. So it's really helpful to understand that hierarchy, see what other tables are in the system, and figure out what's going on. Now, one thing that's great about this as well is that I can click on this task one, and that's going to go away and update it, so I can kind of navigate the hierarchy like this. I know there's other ways to do this as well, but this is just a nice quick way to do it and get a good output. And then you'll notice as well that there's these icons to the right, and we can open a form, so we can open the list, we can open a form, and we can open the configuration or the table definition. We can do that for anything in here. So very, very handy, just for getting a bird's eye view of things, or jumping to something quickly, or it's just there as a helping hand, really. That kind of covers that. We'll come to logs in just a second. What we're going to do now is just go back into kind of the coding. So these are the sort of three main areas that we're covering here. It's we're running code, we can do regular expression testing, and we can check out the table hierarchy. Now, obviously, we ran a script in here just now, and when we're running scripts, oftentimes stuff can happen within the platform that we're not aware of, that Xplore is not aware of, it never will be, because something's been kicked off during our process that is outside of the kind of scope or remit of what we're running. So what Xplore does, in fact, if I refresh this very quickly, we'll just show you. If I come into a fresh instance of Xplore and have a look at the logs tab here, it's just going to give me a list of links that allow me to go and view the logs for today. And these are just kind of their helpful links that if you're just working in here or anything, then you can click on this, you get a window open, and it's going to show you where you're at on those. And of course, you can link through the application logs as well. We can link through emails, events, all of those kinds of things. Now, if I run a script on this, as we did earlier, let's just do that one for now. You're going to see we're actually going to get an extra set of log menus, which are contextual to the script that we've just executed. So now if I hit system logs, it's going to show me the logs for the time that this took to run. And this is really important as well, actually. We've got this timer up here. Xplore is basically making sure that, or it's allowing you to cancel transactions as well. And we're capturing the time that it started, the time that it ended, so that we can get this sort of dynamic linking here. If I was to do a sleep in here for 2 seconds, you can see we've got this cancel button, and I can just cancel that straight away, and it will cancel the transaction. So if you're doing a loop, or you're developing some code which has got complex loops in there and things, that's really powerful so that you don't break your system. If you do that in a background script, you've basically got to do a custom, a manual sysparm transaction, cancel transaction. In here, it doesn't matter. So it's just one click. And of course, we can come back to that, look at the system logs again, and in here, it's not going to show it to me, but you get the idea anyway. So we can have a look at all the other stuff in there. All right. So one of the things I just wanted to, that's kind of the basic overview of it. What we're going to do now is just have a look into some of the more complex side of things. And obviously I use this almost every single day. I think most people that I work with use this almost every day because it is just so invaluable when we're building applications and doing things to figure out what's going on, modify things easily. And we're just going to show you some of that now. So I said earlier, we're going to come back to the scripts tab here. And I actually found it earlier. So we can search in here for a script. And there was an antivirus attachment descriptor. Now I'm assuming this is to do with antivirus, but we're going to have a look at this. I haven't done any sort of testing on this. We're just going to have a look and see what happens and have a play. Now, I've just imported this whole script include into here. Obviously, I've chosen this one actually because it's nice and small, and it extends something else. So we can actually sort of see very easily here what this is doing. So if I have a look at the attachment descriptor class, this is our class function. It's just doing an initialize. And then we can have a look into the prototype. And we can see on the prototype of this, I'd say this is kind of getting into proper JavaScript prototype inheritance. And we can see all the methods that have been defined on both the antivirus attachment descriptor and the abstract AJAX processor. Now, I don't know how this works, but what I can see here is that there's a get parameter function. Now, obviously that I can tell from the fact that there is no other function in here or method in here called that is going to be sitting on the abstract AJAX processor. So what I can do here is say, you know what, I want to override the abstract AJAX processor, but just here. I'm not interested in updating the script include. I'm not interested in doing anything else with it, but I just want to see, what actually happens here. So if I do new antivirus attachment descriptor and then get attachment state, this class has never been intended to be run this way because it's an AJAX class. But let's just see what happens. It's not going to return me anything. Okay. Now I don't know whether that's right or wrong. It's probably right because we've got a return here that's not actually returning me any values. So, but I know that I want to do something else here. So if I call get parameter, for example, and just say syspalm sysid, it's going to return me undefined because I haven't defined a URL parameter called syspalm sysid. It hasn't been posted to the server or anything. This is running in the background. Now what I can do is say, do you know what? I know that I'm going to pass in a value here, so I'm just going to override it. I'm going to say if the value equals syspalm sysid without the underscore, return ABC. And now you can see I've basically injected some code into the way that this is now running. So I've masked it and I've modified it, but only for my session within Xplore. And this is kind of really powerful when you're working with complex classes and complex things that you're doing, because you don't have to modify the script include, you don't have to log anything out. And actually, just on the logging side of things, again, if I don't know exactly what's happening, I can gsprint and I can see, oh, it's passing me syspalm sysid. So it's just giving you an extra level of ability to come into something and figure out what's going on. I don't even need this here because I'm not doing any work with that other than trying to understand how it works. But maybe, for example, if this was defined in a script include that I knew should be working, then that's fine. So I know all I need to do here is it's looking for a sys attachment ID. So let's go and have a look at a sys attachment. And let's just copy that. So I'm going to return, I'm just going to inject this. Maybe I'm doing a test. Now I can run that, and I'm going to call get attachment state. And you can see, right, that's worked. So that is available. I haven't modified anything. I haven't done anything to the script includes. I've literally just written a script to do this. And this is a really powerful way to kind of change the functionality of scripts that you don't own or don't want to modify, because you can modify them in situ. I could actually write a function now, just if I wanted to have this custom within a business rule or something, and now I can override that. You know what? Maybe I wanted to return the value from another place, and yeah, I need to write test. So there you go. So that's kind of, it's a very simple example, but it's a great way to just show how things kind of, you can do things complicated in there. So yeah, the scripts thing here has been here for a good few versions. I can't remember exactly which, but yes, it has. So you can search anything in here, and it's just going to bring it back for you. I've actually installed the lab here that I did 2 years ago at Knowledge, which we can have a look at potentially. I mean, that actually, we will do that because that will highlight some of the stuff with user data. Okay. So this one doesn't work. This is just a nice, simple, this is basically one of the lab scripts that we had. And what I'll do is just run through this, and you fixed it for the first time yesterday. Excellent. So we'll run through this and just kind of debug it and show you some of how you might use this. This obviously is a function that could be in a script include. I've copied and pasted it into here, and we don't need any of this necessarily. Let's just say I've copied this out of a script include, and I'm just trying to get this to work because it's not working. So what I can see here is I'm just getting returned an array. I'm not expecting an array. I'm expecting, well, I am expecting an array, but I'm expecting it to be full of the days. So what I'm going to do here is just, I'm going to throw the date.getYear, because I can see that is what is being called after this. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so getYear is not a number. Right, let's backtrack a little bit more then. What does D look like? So it's not even a function. So, okay, so D is an invalid date. So immediately now I've just resolved the issue with this script. I've obviously got a bad format in here. I'm not entirely sure off the back of my head what it is. I'm passing that in. I think it's supposed to be, let's have a quick look. So it's actually supposed to be passed in as a date string, and a date string looks like, I have no idea, I can't remember. So it could be anything. Let's come back to this then. So I can't remember the exact thing on here, string the year. It shouldn't be, because I'm coercing it here. But what I do have, and I'm going to cheat because I can, is actually, okay, so it's forward slashes, right? So if you were figuring this out on your own, obviously you would have done some research and realized it's forward slashes. Of course it's forward slashes. But now I can do that. And now I can see, okay, there's my date. So it's Monday, January 1st, 2018. That was the date, obviously. And now let's see if this works. So I've fixed that. What's going to happen now? Something's not working here. This is running for 10 seconds. Shouldn't be doing anything like that. Right, so I know here now I've got a problem with my loop. So I'm going to cancel this. Right, the request failed. Yep, I cancelled it. So what is d.getYear actually returning? It's returning 118, and 118 is less than the year plus 1. So 118 is definitely less than 2019. And okay, what does getDay give us? Again, I can't remember the exact solution to this, but let's just go for this anyway. So does the date exist? I'm going to print it out. Yes, it does. And then I'm going to, so we've got an infinite while loop. Okay, why have we got that? D.getYear is less than 2018. And then basically we're actually wanting to change the days here so that it's that. So let's just remove that. Just run it anyway. So point is, you can fix that in Xplore very quickly. You're not bouncing back and forth between debuggers and all different things. You're not updating scripting clues, you're not updating business rules, you're not affecting anyone else on the system. You're just working in one place, and it's allowing you to get the job done really quickly and efficiently. And obviously I can see here now, I've got all of the values. So here's my string value of the array. So this is what the array looks like as a string that's formatted. And then I've got all of the actual elements within the array printed underneath as well. And we can see 364. So that's a really nice sort of example of just showing you how to kind of take those things that might be more complicated. I keep clicking on settings when I shouldn't be clicking on settings, but there you go. So let's have a look at a slightly more advanced one, and that is going to be JSON. In fact, let's replace that. So if you're doing any work with integrations, for example, or looking at anything to do with JSON or package compiled data or anything like that, or even just large strings, pasting them into a script to test them is really painful. So what you can do is come to this user data tab. You can paste in your JSON or just some text or XML or whatever you want to do. We can actually prettify it if we want to, and Xplore will work out what it is for you and then give you a nice pretty print. And that'll do it for JSON and XML, etc. So this drop down here tells Xplore what you want this to be when it's passed into your script. So if I run this right now, we're just going to get a string. So that's great. That's not that useful though. My input that I'm passing to my function is actual JSON or an object. So I want to actually just say, do you know what? Treat this as a JSON object. So now when I run my user data, I'm actually going to get an array. So obviously it's been printed here as a string, but you can see down the bottom, I've actually got two elements within this array. And now I can actually dot walk through these and see what is within them. So we can see, we can actually see long text that's kind of hidden up nice and easy for you. And we can work through that. So again, really powerful if you've got an integration payload or a request payload or anything like that you just want to figure out what's within it, chuck it into user data, and you can then work with that on here. As I say, what we did earlier, if I'm going to refresh this now, so you can see here's my last script that I executed, user data is empty, and if I run this, it's going to populate. Oh, that's cool. We found a bug live on stream. Nice. I wonder if that's because it's not a string. It probably is. This is the problem with open source software. The testing is never done as well as it should be. If I run that now, crash. There we go. So it's that needs to be looked at. Okay, so we need to re-encode the JSON or the XML to a string to store it. But you get the idea. If you're working with this stuff, it's going to save it for you. And one thing to notice here as well is because I changed the user data value, Xplore's recognized that and put it as a brand new script. So I've got the original one here, even though it's the same script, it's a different user data. Because I've changed the user data for the next one, that was the same one. That's there. Is that a snake, Phil? Just having a look here as well. So we've got XML. There's a bunch of other stuff down here, which I'm not going to go into. We'll keep this fairly short. But again, we can do XML in here. We can do some processing and basically run through and debug everything that we're working with. So that really is about it. There is probably more on here that we could talk about. No one's actually given me any problems to solve, so that's great. It's essentially a tool. Oh, it's a bug. Yeah, okay. I can't see that from here. Well, it's very small on my screen, should I say. Best YouTube can offer. Excellent. So thank you very much. Like I say, there's definitely more to it. Actually, okay, so Phil, you wanted on the client side of things. Let's have a quick look at that. Let's close all of these back into here. So if I'm opening from here, obviously this is now going to be the opening browser or the opening window. And on here, you can now see that I've actually got extra sort of targets on here. So I can choose the opener, which is going to be the main window. And then we've actually got a couple of frames. So if you've done any client stuff within ServiceNow, you'll know GSFT main is the name of this frame here, which all our records load into. We've got the main window has our navigator and the address bar in, and then we've got the GSFT main with this stuff in there. And what this means is that if I choose that, I can now actually run code within that window. So you'll see there's a little blue thing there. Nothing's happened on here. If I come back into here, hey, okay, I've got code running over here. So if you want to have a look at, let's just jump into one of these. Nope, can't do it that way. This is a terrible, that's not a terrible example. I'll do it with attachments to an incident list again, nice and easy. So I know that this incident form is loaded in GSFT main. I'm building something within the code or debugging something within my UI script or a client script or something like that. And now I can actually have access to G_form. Again, Power of Xplore is basically running here to show all of this. And what's actually happening here is the actual Xplore script include is, yeah, Phil, you're asking if this works on client. Absolutely it does. It's going to take a while though, not too bad. So there you go. So you can actually see everything in here. It's definitely not a replacement for console. This is more, console. I rarely use this on the client side because I don't use too much within this, but it definitely has its place. And we can do some cool stuff in here. Like I say, we can see what G_form is in here. We can open all the functions and see what's going on if we want to. Don't know how much ServiceNow are going to like that, but there you go. And we can, if we want to say, let's set our description. So G_form.setValue description. Not going to do anything, but I'm getting some output here, so that's cool. Oh. There we go. So I've just modified this form from within Xplore. So if you're building something complicated, if you've got pop-ups being done, I've used this fairly often if I'm sort of trying to open a modal within here. I don't want to be messing around with the UI action. I'll just build it here, run it over and over and over again, bounce back between, or have my windows side by side, and then I can see what's happening. And it really sort of, a big point of Xplore is, that efficiency that you get from working with, from just being able to just work within one app. You're not bouncing around between different things. Yeah. And we've got obviously the JavaScript debugger there. Don't ever go into that because I don't really care. Not from an Xplore perspective, at least, anyway. Okay, so that is basically it. What I'm going to just quickly point out here as well is, yep, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to. Does it change when you refresh the form? What do you mean? I refresh this form. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's not applying anything because I haven't done anything there. But if I run this again, it's just going to update it. So you can sit here and update this all day and just continue to use the same Xplore session. I'm guessing that's what you were meaning. If you want to get involved, again, jump onto here. You can come to GitHub. If you've got any issues, throw them in here and I'll look at them and add them to the backlog or help you resolve them if you need it. And if you want to contribute, great. Yeah. So thank you very much. Do you have reopen the opener in Xplore? Reopen the opener. I don't understand what you mean there. So the opener, okay, when you open any link from a browser, what you can do is pass the opener along with it, and that's actually one of these security things, and it's why you use no opener when you're doing an anchor tag. So you're writing some HTML, and you can do. Okay, so you answered it. Cool. Hey, Mike. So you can do that, and that's the same thing. But obviously, if I opened it from here, it's actually not going to work. Interesting. I think it's being blocked. Okay, this is a really good. Yeah, the Explore session always stays. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a separate window. It's just hooked into the browser window. So as long as this browser window stays open as a whole, it's going to stay there. If you were to open this, what I was just doing there, clicking this button and nothing's happened. This is supposed to open a new window. What's happening here is actually the browser's preventing it. So if you can't see it on your screen, but if you go and enable pop-ups, you can kind of see it here, yeah, allow pop-ups. Now I can come back and I can use this and it's going to open a new window, and I can just keep doing that if I want to. And that is because that was opened by from the ServiceNow window, I actually maintain all of these. If I just come up here and just type this in, I'm still going to do it. That's very, it's because it's tied to the window, right? So if I do this in a new tab entirely, you can see I now don't have that. I just have server and client. Like I said earlier, client is this window here. So I've got access to Explore if I want to. But yeah, that's it. So I hope you found that useful. I haven't done an Explore demo in a long time, but it's like I say, it's something that I use every single day pretty much. And it's just when you understand and sort of get your head around how it can help you with your workflow, that's when you get the most power out of it. So yeah. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.